Oh my gosh, where to begin? So for me in high school, I identified as straight. That's what I was, and I thought, hey, to be a woman, you have to fit in this particular box. You have to wear jewelry, to be fit, wear makeup, girly clothes, all those things. And I never really resonated with that. But I conformed to it because I thought that's how you fit in, right? That's what I'm supposed to do.
We practice it every day. Conformity consists of following the rules, following the laws that are set forth.
So, funny enough, later on I came out as a lesbian. And I was like, wow, I'm out of this box. And now I'm in this weird middle where, because it's the early 2000s, no one's really talking about gay in the mainstream as they are now. So I'm in this weird middle and I'm like, okay, I'm a lesbian. Like, oh, how do I express myself? How do I identify, right?
Conformity can serve us for good and for bad. And I think that there's value in conformity in the right circumstances. But when we step into conformity unconsciously, then we can run into problems.
Of like when I came out, right? I'm a lesbian. And I guess for me, from my understanding, I was like, everyone knows what a lesbian is. It's two women and they like each other, right? Like, what's not to get? But you wouldn't imagine how many people I meet where they're just like, you're a lesbian? That means like only women? I meet a lot of people like that.
Conformity is when we're sitting in an audience at a show and everybody's coughing. And then they all start standing up. Like one person stands up and then two people stand up and then three. And then we're like, oh, I guess I have to stand up. But the show sucked, but everybody's standing up. So I don't want to be the only one sitting in my chair. I'm going to stand up too.
So, a couple of years later, I'm in community college and, I told my friends like, hey, I'm a lesbian. And I'm like, wow, this is like new territory. I'm like not fitting in anywhere. And they're like, oh yeah, we knew. And not only that, you fit in this specific box. Like you're a butch lesbian because you have masculine mannerisms and all that. And I think it's so interesting because I went from one box to another box when I figured if I came out, I'd be like, there are no boxes because I'm being uniquely me. So,
it is always important to be yourself because, hey, here's the thing. If you're not you, who's going to be you? And if you're pretending to be somebody else or you're taking on someone else's qualities or trying to be like them, then you're being a bad imitation of somebody else. We need to be uniquely ourselves because nobody else can be.
I think it's so important to express your unique voice and be grounded in it because many people will tell you how to express your voice, whether it be from family, from friends, to all else, right?
People are always there to tell you what they think you should do or be. But when we don't stand in our own personal power and be authentically and uniquely ourselves, we miss a lot.
It was funny because I had a coworker that I had worked with and she'd found out like, oh, you're a lesbian. And I remember her coming up to me like she's a couple of years younger and she's like, you're a lesbian? Like really? Like only women? What is that? And and the beautiful thing about that, right, is I could judge and be like, what's wrong with you? How could you not know? What's wrong with you? How do you not know? And I could be judging, but I just was like, yes, it's only women, and that's what I am.
So there was a little girl that lived across the street from us, and I was so excited because she was my age. We get together, and she wasn't my sister, and we get together and we play, and she was always pulling my hair, always hitting me. And I remember going home after one day of all of that crying and saying to my dad, what? Don't you do that? What am I gonna do? I don't like this anymore. And my dad, with this paper up in front of his face, so I already feel devalued, right? Because he's not even putting the paper down to listen. Finally, he just gets tired of me just sitting there at the foot of his recliner, and he puts the paper down and goes, Well, just imagine it in your head and hit her back. Like hit her back. Well, I can't. How do I do that? Imagine it in your head and just do it. And then the paper goes back up and I'm like, okay, I guess I'm done. The Oz is finished with me. And, I just got to figure this out.
When I was trying to figure out my style growing up, and I'm like, I don't fit into the very feminine, but I'm also not a man. But a lot of the times when I was trying to find my style, my mom would be like, you don't want to dress like a guy, right? You look like a man. People are going to think you're a man. And it was so interesting because, being around my friends, it would be the same thing too, where it's like, well, I like flannel, or I like these kind of things. And they're like, oh, butch lesbian, you're a man. So because you're a man, this is how you kind of have to be when you want to date women. And people are trying to tell you these things, but if you're not authentic and true to yourself and know yourself well enough, it's so easy to get swayed in it.
So the next day happens, and we're playing, and we're at the next door neighbor's house. Now mind you, she lives across the street. And the older kids are out. And the older kids being like my older brother, who's like 3 years older than me, and the other neighbor boys that are around the same age as him. And they're all just kind of milling around at the bottom of the driveway there. And she comes up and she grabs my hair and she's yanking it really hard. And I'm like, let me go. And then next thing you know, the boys are getting around, crowding around going, fight, fight, fight. And I'm thinking, no, save me, save me, save me. And nobody's stopping her. And I'm just like, "Rrr." So finally I just like hauled off and decked her and she let go. And I was like amazed. Wow. She let go. Oh no, I hurt my friend. And I didn't like hurting my friend. And she ran off home crying. I went home crying because I hurt my friend and she'll never talk to me again. With no regard to the fact that she's been beating up on me all this time. So
I wanted to date different girls, and then Jess told me like, hey, you know what you should do? You need to sleep with a bunch of women. And I was like, I don't want to sleep with a bunch of women. And she's like, you have to, because you need to be emotionally detached or else you're not going to make it out there. And I'm like, well, I don't want to do that. I still want to feel emotional when I'm dating people. And she's like, well, that's what you got to do, because that's the only way you're going to and if you really want to date someone serious, you got to wait a couple of years and then you date them. And I was like, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that either. But I also I'm having all these conflicting feelings because I'm like, I'm not telling you your way is wrong. I just don't want to do that myself, but I'm not judging that.
So I'm not home, I guess it's only been a few minutes or whatever. Phone rings. You want to come over and play? Oh, really? You're not mad at me because I hit you? No, come on over and play. So I'm like, Mom, can I go? And she's like, yeah, sure, whatever. So I go over. And I no sooner walk into the door, and I'm all elated that my friend forgave me. She saw the wrongs in her ways, and, and she wants to play again. Her mother grabs me and holds me by both of my arms and tells her daughter, hit her back. That's what you get for hitting my daughter. No regard to the fact that her daughter's been beating the crap out of me for weeks, right? So she hits, and I'm crying. And I think it was the betrayal of my friend that really hurt my feelings more than her hitting me. And I go home, and I'm a mess. And my mom's like, what's wrong? What's going on? So I told her what happened. How dare she? And she grabs my arm and she says, let's go. And I'm like, no, where are we going? Come on, we're going to go back there. And I'm like, no, do I have to? Yes, let's go. Okay.
I feel like it's freeing in a way, because I feel like I have come across people, and I've been there myself, where I'm just like, how do they not know this? Or how are they not up on the politics or just so many things, right, that don't align with your things. But it is a beautiful thing to just have the acceptance and allowance to be like, I'm not compromising me. I'm not, just because this person didn't know what a lesbian was, I wasn't like, okay, I have to be something else now because they don't know. I still stood in me, but I still had the grace to be like, all right, that's fine that you don't know. Here's information. I'm not going to get too entangled in it, if that makes sense.
So then we get to the neighbors, and my mom's pounding on the door, and we open the door, and the mom's there. And mom's like, what? And my mom busts in, and now I got to follow her in, the little coward that I am. So I follow her in. And my friend is there, and my mom grabs up my friend, is hanging on my friend, and she's like looking at the mother the whole time saying, how dare you hold my daughter down so your daughter can beat on her, so now it's my daughter's turn to beat on your daughter, right? So she's holding, and this is not funny, but it's kind of ridiculous, but this is what's happening, right? So, and she's holding her, and I know that, like, I'm probably like around maybe 5 years old, something like this, right? And this is what's happening. This is the craziness of what's happening. So my mom's like, all right, hit her, Kathleen. No, that's not right. Hit her, Oops, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. Anyway, hit her. And like, no, Mom, it's not right. So my mom got frustrated. And she's like, barks something at the mother, and we leave. And all the way home, she's yelling at me. Why didn't you hit her? You should have hit her. I held her. It's just the right thing to do. Turn it. Was it an eye for an eye? That was it. Eye for an eye, right? And I'm like, I looked at her and I said, Mom, it's not right. Just because her mother did it to me doesn't mean that that's right for us to do it. So even though my mom was mad at me, and believe me, my mom was way scary, way scary, and I always wanted to do what my parents wanted me to do. But I stood in my power that day.